India is one of the world's fastest-growing economies. They are slowly trying to become the next global superpower, sitting side by side with the United States and China. But the story of how India came to become an emerging powerhouse is a story that is often repeated. What is not, however, is the story of how India is actually one of the world's biggest holders of gold reserves. Indeed, India, despite still being classified as a developing economy, and not even a well-regarded export powerhouse, is actually very abundant in gold reserves. Here's a graph comparing the gold reserves of India to many major economies out there. Here, you can see that India has gold reserves of over 876 metric tons, which is a massive figure. At market value, this is worth over $35.2 billion. That is no small figure, and it is far larger than Japan, which is Asia's second largest economy. It far surpasses the United Kingdom, which only holds 310 metric tons of gold, and a very long list. This enormous amount of gold makes us question just why India has so many gold reserves. Japan, which is obvious to many of you, is a very wealthy country. They far surpass India when it comes to many things such as technology, manufacturing, and even finance. Yet, India surpasses them in terms of gold reserves. On top of that, India does not only hold a substantial amount of gold in its reserves, they also outpace the entire Asian major economies when it comes to seeing how much gold they have as a percentage of their total reserves. Here's a graph on that matter. Here you can see that India's gold as a percentage of total reserves sits at over 8.98%, which is nearly double that of China. This basically means that India places a significantly higher emphasis on gold as part of its overall reserve strategy compared to other major Asian economies. Following that, there is a very particular trend that has occurred as of the past few years, and it's also India's gold accumulation. India never really had this much gold in the past. It was only in recent years. Here's a graph on India's gold reserves by year. Here, you can see that India's gold reserves have rapidly been rising. From 2010 to 2017, India's gold reserves have been constant at only 557 metric tons. It was only from 2018 to the latest quarters that India actually started to accumulate massive amounts of gold. So, we have two things to understand here: the reason why India has so much gold reserves, and why it has been accumulating as of late. Let's first start with why India is buying up so much gold reserves. The gold of India is handled by the Reserve Bank of India, RBI. The RBI is basically India's central bank, and alongside gold, they also manage India's foreign exchange reserves, which includes foreign currencies like the US dollar, government bonds, and other international assets. And over the past few years, the RBI has acquired gold, not just a lot, but when compared to other economies, it is significantly higher. For instance, here's a graph on the comparison of gold buying of China, India, and the rest of G20. Here, you can see that India isn't just buying up a lot of gold, they are buying up much more than China and the rest of G20. This isn't a small feat, it's significant, and the reason being varies from one opinion to another. There is one particular view for this gold buying spree, and that can be traced from one of the chief economists of India's largest public banks. Economist known as Madan Sabnavis noted that the US dollar has traditionally been a stable currency, but since the war in Ukraine had begun, its reliability has weakened since. What this all means is that India, like many other nations, is looking for alternative ways to safeguard its financial stability. The growing uncertainty around the US dollar, due to geopolitical tensions and economic sanctions, has made gold a more attractive option. The second reason for India's gold buying spree can also be traced by the fact that India belongs to the group known as BRICS. BRICS, which is short for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is a bloc of emerging economies that has been pushing for a shift away from Western financial dominance. For India to shift away from the Western financial dominance, they must stray away from the US dollar as a source of foreign reserves within their system. The reason being is because the US dollar serves as the world's primary reserve currency, giving the United States significant financial leverage over global trade and economic policies. If India continues to hold a large portion of its reserves in dollars, it remains vulnerable to economic sanctions, currency fluctuations, and policy changes imposed by the US government. So, what they want to change is by lowering their holdings of the US dollars and instead hold gold. Hence, that is a major reason as to why India has been buying up so much gold as of late. Now, one last major reason for India's buying up of gold reserves can be because they want to mitigate the risks associated with holding too much of their foreign reserves in US treasuries. India, like many other countries, has traditionally stored a large portion of its foreign exchange reserves in US Treasury securities. These are considered safe assets. Here's a graph on select large holders of US securities by country. Here, you can see that India is a major holder of US securities as of the data for June 2024, over $265 billion. That may seem like a small figure when you compare it to, say, the United Kingdom, China, or other major Asian economy. But you've got to understand that if we were to graph out the total foreign reserves of India, we get to see that in 2023, they only had reserves of over $627 billion, which means that the $265 billion in US securities are a significant portion, over 42%, of India's total foreign reserves. But the problem with holding this much US securities is that they come with risk, such as a revaluation loss due to rising US Treasury yields. What this means can be seen if we were to graph out the historical trend of US Treasury yields. Here, we can observe how US Treasury yields fluctuate over time, especially during periods of economic uncertainty and Federal Reserve policy changes. When yields rise, the market value of existing Treasury securities drops, leading to potential revaluation losses for major holders like India. And this is what India is trying to stray away from. By holding gold and not US Treasuries, they won't lose value due to changes in interest rates. It remains a stable store of value, making it a safer option for long-term reserves. And the good part of holding a substantial amount of gold is the fact that gold has historically risen in value for many, many decades. Here's a graph on the price of gold over time. Here, you can see that gold didn't just rise by a few dollars or even hundreds of dollars, but it rose to over thousands of dollars. You can see that in the 1990s, gold was priced at around $300. Today, however, it is nearly $3,000. That is an incredible return if one were to buy gold back in the 1990s. And you can also see that since 2017, when India had started buying up gold, the price of gold had also steadily risen, which is a trend that has been caused by the gold buying spree of India and many central banks out there. So, as you can see, the reasons why India has so much gold reserves and why it is accumulating gold reserves are largely because of the recent trends we have seen in the past few years. But what about historically? Is there an important reason as to why India had a lot of gold prior to this trend? Well, there is an important reason for India's gold reserves as well, and that can be because of India's cultural practices. When India gained independence in 1947, the nation inherited a complex legacy of economic structures, one where gold continued to play an essential role. The government recognized that gold was more than just a commodity. It was a reservoir of value and a symbol of national pride. As such, policies were formulated to regulate the gold market, promote domestic refining, and even accumulate gold as part of the country's foreign exchange reserves. In the decades following independence, India experienced rapid industrialization and economic growth. Yet, gold remained a constant. Cultural practices ensured that gold continued to flow into households, while the government used gold strategically to buffer against external economic shocks. The coexistence of a vibrant gold market in private hands and significant government-held gold reserves is a unique feature of India's economic landscape. So as you can see, gold isn't just a result of modern issues. It is a result of India's history, culture, and economic strategy. But anyway, do let us know what you think. Thanks for watching.